Howdy, folks. Time for the Sunday update. This last week, a lot of my focus was on budget issues. So we found out that there was a hiccup in the budget, that there was about a $107,000 deficit remaining after the changes we made. So I think all of us were focused on where can we find money so that we don't have to cut anybody. I came up with something working with the sheriff's department, looking at how their funds interact with other departments, where we could preserve about 42,000 into the general fund. But unfortunately, that's not enough to save a position. 42 is a lot below 107. So Rod has a corporate donor on the line that may make up the difference or may fund a position. So he's got that going. John has already run through a bunch of the numbers, and we got the deficit as low as we got it through his work. So that was a large chunk of the week for all of us, is trying to figure out how we can scrape money together and try and preserve this last position. We'll meet Wednesday at 11 to talk about it and see what everybody's come up with, if there's been any changes. Otherwise, Wednesday at 11 this coming week, we're going to have to decide where the cut's going to be. So it's unfortunate. We thought we had it, but not so much. Let's see. Big part of my week as well, the other big part, was how we work on this 5% initiative that I've talked about. So I think it was last week, I sent out an email to all of the commissioners in the state. We got 36 counties. Each one of us has about 5 commissioners, or 3 commissioners. I think a few of us have 5. And we saw who responded. So we had a board meeting this week on Tuesday. And when that meeting started, I had 7 counties that were interested, a couple committed. And by the end of that same commissioners meeting, I had 9 counties. So interest grew fast. And I got some calls this week from, ideas, concerns. Obviously, a concern is I should start at the start. So the proposal, in case folks haven't heard it, is to require the state to return 5% of income tax back to their county of origin. So right now, no matter how much money you're making and income tax you're paying, that does not come to directly fund the services you're receiving from your county and your city. The money goes to the state. They retain the income taxes, and then through a lot of different funding streams, redelegate that money back outward. So that creates some inefficiency for some of those. One example is CAFA funding that funds part of the assessor, part of the clerk's office. There's another one I'm forgetting. But this year, I believe they're allocating $16 million out, but the state can keep a 10% administrative rate. So 1.6 is going away into this administrative burden, whereas if we were able to cut these 10 and 20 different little funding streams that exist, consolidate them into one income tax structure that returns to where the money came from at a percentage, then we could save money on administrative rates. They could downsize upper level positions. It's the same thing we just did with the county's budget. We needed to right size some things. We needed to save some money, so we consolidated juvenile services under community corrections, and it relieved some of the top heavy burden. Not that it was top heavy, but I mean it took the pay from the top tier out. Somebody had to be let go, and it saved quite a bit of money for the county and helped us make the budget work better. So that's the concept in that one. Funny enough, the Baker County already had a meeting they were having, so they talked about it at that. They're fully on board. I met with one of the commissioners from Lincoln County today, He was coming through, so we met for coffee and talked about the idea. There's interest, but there's concern that the state will cut those other funding streams if we start to receive money directly through the income tax mechanism. In case this got mistaken somewhere, this is not an increase in anyone's taxes. This is money that we already paid into our income tax coming to benefit us locally instead of at the discretion of the state, because we know what we need better than they do many times, or always. So Thursday, I'm going to be up in Salem. I'm going to do a round trip up there. It would normally be Commissioner's College, but I have to meet that for some stuff, or miss that for some stuff on Friday. But I'm going to have the chance on Thursday to meet with a bunch of the commissioners in County College, talk about this idea, brainstorm where the hiccups are, how we can correct those hiccups. And then I'll shoot back down here, do what I need to do Friday, and then Saturday I'll be headed back up north, but this time north of Tillamook, to meet with one of the co-chairs of the Governance and Revenues Committee for the Association of Counties, and her and I are going to talk about this idea as well and see how we can execute on this as a group. Because I've been bringing this up for a while, and I was kind of running into not getting any traction, spinning my wheels. So that's why I just shotgun blasted out the idea to all the commissioners. And then folks come back and say, well, this is probably how you should have done it. So, okay, now I know where we're going. I'll talk with them and we'll see how we move this thing forward. But before that came up, I already met with the Teamsters. So, I skipped ahead on a few steps. I was able to meet with some representative from Teamsters 223. That's the union that is kind of in the backbone of our police union here, CADS. So they're like a parent union. This is the first time I've worked with unions directly. So the city had them, but I didn't have those interactions. So I'm learning on that. But they had an interest because obviously they know if we have more general fund, we can pay more officers and negotiate a little more healthily. So, we'll see support there as well, I'm sure. A number of other unions I'm sure will hop on, but I'll do this thing first with the proper channel and see where that takes us next. We got that thing. Those Lane County called me directly. One of their commissioners did because they're very interested. That was pretty cool to get a call over it. I have asked Boomer, our house rep for our district. Boomer has always come through for me when I need something out of the state and they're being resistant. So I reach out to Boomer. I need the state to tell me the actual administrative costs of all of those different grants they administer for the different counties in the state. Once I know that, we can put a better kind of point on how much money could be saved if we streamlined this process. Of course, as folks probably also know, or definitely those of us working in government know, the state can't retain all the people it needs. Understaffed, can't function the way it is, so I figure we find out how much money we can save, how many positions we can save. Everyone wins, basically. What do we have? That was parole probation. I've had some folks, this is just a cool thing that's been happening. I've had some folks come up to me in the community and thank me for everything we're doing to try and get this budget sorted out, make new revenue streams that don't involve increasing folks' taxes. Somebody was just grateful they finally feel listened to, which is unfortunate that was happening for them, but I'm glad folks are happy. That's good. CAFA was an example. I already gave that one. Some stuff coming up for this week. There's an economic summit, so I'll be attending that. I'm going to look at the Southwestern Innovation Hub and the Southwestern Accelerator. So those are two programs that help folks kick off their businesses. And I'm sure I'll learn more about them as this goes on, but I remember some of these from years back when they were trying to get started, so it's pretty cool to see those up and kicking. And they'll talk about, there's going to be some folks to talk about the PCIP, the Pacific Coast Intermodal Port Project, that's aimed at the North Spit. My understanding is there's going to start to be more community engagement and press around that coming up soon-ish. I'm sure I'll know more after we have this summit, but that was just something I heard in the grapevine, is that there are some folks that are going to be coming out more. I think it's folks I met in December when they came by briefly, but my understanding is that'll pick up so we can all have more information, because big things like that, we all want information. It's easy to get nervous when you don't have it. So it'll be good to have some folks talking about the project here that are working on it. I've got a meeting with the mayor of Powers this week. I've been meeting with folks talking about what do they want to see out of their city, what is their economic development plan, what are their goals, and how can we help. And I'll be meeting with the mayor of Powers to talk about what they're working on out there. I'll actually go out there, and yeah, it'll be fun stuff. I know they have the Tour de France coming up. Don't remember when it is, but you can Google the name. I'm sure you'll find it. And last thing I'll just briefly touch on, because we've already been down this road, but at the commissioners meeting this week, the ICE proclamation came back. It's a proclamation supporting ICE in expressing a desire to not follow the state laws. It had no teeth, no function, just a statement with a lot of assertions and suggestions. But the problem is that I keep seeing is, like, you can go back to the start of this thing. The original thing, right there, it had not much at all to do with, it was related to immigration. The purpose of it was that the feds have training that state and local cops don't. And there was concern about getting sued if state and local cops tried to do the job of the federal officers who are trained in that function, know their duties, and know their responsibilities for that purpose. And also because the federal government is funded to administer these things, they should be doing the job that they're receiving the money for. And that was House Bill 2314 back in 1987. Some folks have tried to bill this as a big partisan came out of the woke movement. I'm not sure. I was two. I don't know how much of a woke movement there was in 1987. But looking at the voting, at the time there were 31 Democrats and 29 Republicans in the House. One Democrat was absent, one Republican voted against it, so it was 30 Democrats and 28 Republicans that decided that the federal government should do the federal government's own job. And as it would be prophetic, the concern was that the state would get sued or somebody would get sued. So we skip ahead, what is that, a little more than 30 years to 2014, and you've got this one now. Clackamas County got sued because they honored an administrative warrant from ICE, which is not a warrant signed by a judge. Every other law enforcement agency has to get their warrant signed by a judge. I don't know why ICE doesn't want to. They could. The point was made that, well, they'll never get that warrant from an Oregon judge. And the good news is they wouldn't get that warrant from an Oregon judge. They're a federal agency. They would get the warrant from a federal court. So that's irrelevant. Probably one of the most concerning things in this, there was an attorney at the meeting, and she shared as well about this case that Clackamas County was the one that got sued. Clackamas requested that ICE assist in this case because they were getting sued for following ICE's directions, and ICE abandoned them. So, the federal government is paid to do the federal job, and they're trained to be feds. And if you follow their orders, apparently they'll just abandon you and hang you out to dry. Why would we help them? So, that pretty much covers that. Covered a bunch of other stuff. I told you what I'm up to this coming week. And yeah, that'll sum it up. Just in time for people to show up. I'm bailing out. We'll see you later.